A man does not grow old all at once. It happens in small ways, subtle ways, not in the body first, but in the breath, in how long he lingers between thoughts, in whether his gaze still listens or only remembers. Somewhere along the years, many stop being present and begin performing life. That's when something shifts, not in the world, but in how the world sees him. Welcome to Stoic courage. Not every answer comes from doing more. Some truths arrive only when you're still enough to let them find you. It begins quietly, not with clothes or language, but with hesitation. The moment a man questions whether who he is still enough. That doubt whispers. It reaches for the shirt that doesn't fit, the slang that doesn't land, the energy that feels borrowed. But youth is not a costume, and attraction is not born from mimicry. What unsettles her is not the years on his face, but the performance he puts on to erase them. She doesn't walk away from age. She walks away from the denial of it. There is something magnetic about a man who wears his years without apology. A man who doesn't chase relevance because his presence is already undeniable. Time does not strip a man of value, pretending it hasn't passed. That's what does. It begins quietly, not with clothes or language, but with hesitation. The moment a man questions whether who he is still enough. That doubt whispers. It reaches for the shirt that doesn't fit, the slang that doesn't land, the energy that feels borrowed. But youth is not a costume, and attraction is not born from mimicry. What unsettles her is not the years on his face, but the performance he puts on to erase them. She doesn't walk away from age. She walks away from the denial of it. There is something magnetic about a man who wears his years without apology. A man who doesn't chase relevance because his presence is already undeniable. Time does not strip a man of value, pretending it hasn't passed. That's what does. Attraction isn't always about what's seen. Sometimes it's about what's sensed, without looking. She may not say a word, but the body reads everything. The undone collar, the breath that carries yesterday's carelessness, the skin that no longer feels claimed by the man who wears it. Neglect has a scent, and she smells it long before she names it. Not grooming, not style, but something deeper, the quiet erosion of reverence. When a man no longer honors himself, his presence loses tone. Like a once vibrant room gathering dust because its owner stopped arriving. Attraction fades not because beauty fades, but because the energy behind beauty grew dim without even knowing. There's a kind of love that watches, and a kind that waits to be obeyed. At first glance, they look the same. Soft voice, gentle concern, questions that sound like affection. Where were you? Who was there? Why didn't you answer? But underneath the silk, a knot. Control rarely arrives with a raised voice. It comes dressed in worry, carrying flowers, asking for nothing, but slowly tightening its hand. She senses it, not because she's suspicious, but because her freedom begins to shrink. And desire dies where freedom can't breathe. A man who cannot sit with his own uncertainty will try to manage hers. But what he calls love, she will feel as a narrowing room, and she'll leave not to escape him, but to remember herself. There's a strange temptation that haunts older men. The need to make time owe them respect, so they speak of what they've done, where they've been, how much they know. But wisdom isn't what you carry from the past. It's what you no longer need to mention. To her, the louder you say, "I've lived," the clearer it sounds. I'm afraid I'm no longer living. Age is not unattractive, but obsession with age is. And experience, when worn like armor, only reveals the fear beneath it. She isn't drawn to what you've collected. She's moved by how lightly you can hold it, how free you are from the weight of proving. You want her to see a man of depth. Then stop dragging your history like a badge. Be still and let the depth speak without you. Some men age like stone, solid, grounded, silent. Others like ash, gray, crumbling, coated in bitterness they mistake for wisdom. She won't tell you she smells it, but she does. In the way you speak of your exes, in how often the world used to be better. In the silence that no longer feels peaceful, just defeated. Bitterness is the perfume of the unlived life, and women sense it before it speaks. It clings to memory. It weighs down the voice. It dulls the room without ever raising the volume. You think you're being honest, but honesty without healing is just leaking pain onto someone who didn't ask for it. And she'll leave. Not because you're angry, but because she doesn't want to become what you've already given up on. Not all men grow forgettable with time. Some become harder to look away from. Not because they shout, but because they no longer need to. There's a masculinity that doesn't flirt, doesn't persuade, doesn't seek approval. It just exists. And in that stillness, something ancient returns. Not dominance, not charm, but gravity. The kind that slows a room, the kind that calms the feminine without saying a word. Not because it tries, but because it is. She doesn't stay because you win her. She stays because there's nothing in you that fears being alone. That kind of presence doesn't compete with youth. It makes youth question itself. She didn't leave because you aged. She left when you stopped being timeless. This is Stoic courage. Leave the noise. Return to the center.